Yeah, as I'm talking to voters around the district, affordability definitely is one of the top issues of people's minds. And I'm coming into this race with a really long background and track record working on affordable housing issues. So I'm really excited to be able to take that expertise to the legislature. As a UT Law professor and as an advocate, I've been working on affordable housing issues for years. And there's a number of things we can be doing. And one is we need property tax reform. And that definitely needs to be a priority at this next session to help offset the property tax burdens that homeowners are currently bearing right now. And that's forcing a lot of homeowners to sell and pushing them out of the city. But we also need to do a lot more to create more affordable rental housing opportunities. And there's many different things we can be doing at a state level to promote that, from investing in our state's housing trust fund to expanding our homestead preservation district toolbox that the city of Austin recently implemented. That's legislation I got to help work on several years ago at the legislature, and that's a great tool that we can be expanding and we should be using more broadly. To providing for housing for the homeless, which is a really key issue in Austin for families and for children in ASD schools who currently don't have a place to live in. We need to be investing in a transportation system of the future. And right now, the state has a very myopic focus on building roads. And yes, we need to be investing in roads, but it can't just be that. Austin's the 11th largest city in the country, and we need to be investing in a system that's addressing all different modes of transportation. And so one of the key things I want to work on as a legislator is making sure that we're prioritizing a full range of transportation modes and that we really are investing in the system of the future. There's a lot of exciting things happening with technology, with driverless cars coming on the horizon, and we need to have a plan in place and funding in place to plan for the future.
Would this be kind of grant money for, or state-funded grant money for these other problems, or these other options?
Yeah, so I mean, there is the state. The past two elections, we've had citizen votes for huge increases in funding for transportation, but that money is going largely to building roads, and we need to be investing money into other sources of transportation. And we do need new revenue sources. We need to look at the gas tax, increasing that. There was great legislation proposed last session that would provide for a local option for a vehicle registration fee that would create some important new revenue for us to address our local transportation issues. Because at the end of the day, it's going to take money to address the problems, and we have to be investing in that, and we're not at the state level. Yeah, so I think it's important to adjust the formula so that we're getting increased funding here locally, and that takes into account, one, the high percentage of lower income children we have and ESL, English as second language learners, because we need to be investing more in those children than we are now. And then also we need to be taking account Austin's very high cost of living, and to be able to continue to attract and retain teachers, we need to be providing them the funding they need so they can afford to live here. And those formulas need to take into account those two things. But also, we ultimately need bigger state investment and less heavy reliance on property taxes and property tax redistribution to fund our education system. That's the kind of fundamental reform we need to ultimately make the changes that are going to make a difference in education. So the litigants in the case that's up at the Supreme Court have said that we need basically $6 billion in additional funding to really create a system that's a strong, equitable system. And that's what we need to be investing in as a state and to ensure the success of our children. So I have two kids in AISD schools. I grew up in public schools, and here in Austin I have a 7th grader and a 5th grader in Austin schools, and I'm a strong advocate and proponent of our public schools. To me, this is the bedrock of our democracy, is having a strong public education system. And so I would be out front and center fighting against any efforts to create vouchers and to support funding for private schools, because as it is, we're not funding enough as it is now for our public schools, and we don't have it, for many reasons. It's fundamentally wrong to be siphoning off those resources to private schools. Yeah, I mean, immigration is a federal matter, and we have federal laws on the books around immigration, and that's up to the federal government to enforce. And we should be able, as a city, to have local control and leave that as enforcement of those laws to the federal government. And if Austin is a city we choose that we're going to be a diverse and inclusive city and protect the rights and interests of people, if everyone in our community, we should have the ability to do that. So I would be out front, definitely working to defeat any attempts to roll back our inclusive values as a community here in Austin. One of my main reasons I'm running in this race is because I believe we need big structural reform, and we as a Democratic Party need to be pushing forward a much bolder, broader agenda that really speaks to the most challenging issues in our state. We need to be out front and center talking about the corporate money and special interest money that's corrupting our political system. And so I'm running on a campaign, a platform to push forward big changes to address those structural defects. As ultimately, as Democrats and progressives, we're not going to get the big changes that we want unless we're addressing those structural reforms. So I'm going to be out front and center as a strong leader pushing for the big structural reforms. So corporate finance, addressing our partisan gerrymandering that's really, I think, creating a broken government, and working really to tackle head on our growing economic divides, which to me is one of our greatest challenges right now in our society. We have a middle class that's shrinking, and people are having a harder time getting ahead. And as Democrats, and we need to be speaking out about these issues, because these are issues that don't affect just liberals or conservatives, urban or rural areas. These are statewide issues where people are really feeling the pressure, where they're not able to get ahead. And as Democrats, we need to be putting forward those policies and framing them in a way that people throughout the state can understand, hey, we're the party that's really interested in investing in the middle class and making sure that everyone has a chance to get ahead. So I think one of the main things I would do is a comprehensive package of legislation to get at those structural economic divides that we have in our society. So that would include property tax reform. We need a living wage, or at least give cities the ability to adopt a living wage ordinance. There are too many people in our society that are working full time and living in poverty, and that's unacceptable. And in addition, we need to address affordability. So I would actually be filing, one of the first things I would want to file is a comprehensive set of legislation that would really start to get at those structural defects we have and get at our growing economic divide, so that our middle income families can succeed, so they can stay in our city, and so Austin can continue to be a diverse and inclusive community. Yeah, I'm really excited to be coming into this race with a very strong background as a community advocate. I graduated from law school here 20 years ago and have been a consistent advocate on issues important to our community, from helping families with children be able to stay in this city, to my work as a leader on affordable housing issues, to my work on quality of life issues and expanding access to parks. So I'm coming into this record as a candidate with the deepest, longest track record of working on these hard community issues. And on top of that, I have a long track record as a legislative reformer. I've been at the Capitol regularly, helping draft and pass laws that are on the books today and making a difference in people's lives. I've been up at the Capitol. I've helped create and pass legislation to provide for property tax relief for vulnerable homeowners. I've worked on legislation to help homeowners be able to pass title onto their homes to their children. I've worked on legislation to help victims of natural disasters. So I have a successful track record. I've shown I have a proven record of getting real reforms and real results. And to me, that's really what sets me apart.